finding a lasting peace. A ceasefire begins, but can Yemen put a stop to the fighting? Also on today's program, crime in Venezuela continues to skyrocket. We have a special report from the Caracas ganglands.
Todos tenemos que sobrevivir y la manera más fácil para nosotros es secuestrar, robar, vender droga, todo lo que tú te puedas imaginar, que nos produzca más dinero que trabajar un trabajo común que no nos da nada.
And in picture this, the Philippines is on lockdown as Typhoon Melor lashes the archipelago. Hello and welcome to the Newsmakers with me, Imran Garda. After 9 months of bloody conflict, a ceasefire has begun to try and end Yemen's war. It'll coincide with the latest round of UN-brokered peace talks which are underway in Switzerland. Delegates from both sides of the conflict will try to come face to face and find what they call a durable peace. But after several failed attempts, can these talks bring about change in the war-torn country? Or will the conflict that many see as a proxy war between Saudi and Iran continue to escalate? Already, nearly 6,000 people have died in the fighting, which has left 80% of the population dependent on humanitarian aid. Today's Newsmaker is Yemen's war, as we ask if peace is just around the corner or just a distant dream.
The week that was supposed to bring peace to Yemen began with more violence. New airstrikes by the Saudi-led coalition on Sunday killed 19 civilians.
At around 4 a.m, the first missile hit. Then there was a second, 3, 4, 5, a sixth missile, all on innocent civilians, women and children.
On Monday, Houthi rocket fire killed 2 senior army commanders from Saudi Arabia and the UAE. One of the biggest setbacks for Gulf forces in 9 months of fighting against the Iran-allied rebels and forces loyal to former President Ali Abdullah Saleh. All this just a day before Yemen's warring sides were scheduled to drop their weapons for a week. The United Nations is once again brokering difficult talks to reach a peace deal. Both sides say they're serious about negotiations and have agreed on a draft agenda to end the war.
We assure our people that we're going to the talks for the sake of achieving success and to stop this frivolous war.
But peace talks have failed every time. When Houthi rebels ousted Yemen's government from power, it opened a new front in the rivalry between Sunni Saudi Arabia and Shiite Iran. Saudi Arabia and 4 Gulf states are backing government forces, launching airstrikes against Houthis who control the north. Iran has been accused of backing Shia rebels who say they're fighting against discrimination. Last April, the United Nations proposed a solution that called on Houthis to give back territory, including the capital Sana'a, and for both sides to lay down their arms. A 5-day ceasefire was agreed in May, but wasn't respected. In June, the UN called for talks in Geneva, but neither side agreed on the terms of negotiation. In July, another 5-day ceasefire was tried, but ended with both sides accusing each other of violating the truce. In the months between, ongoing killings and the constant presence of terror groups like Al-Qaeda and Daesh expanding their own footprints. Of the country's 22 million people, more than 1 million have been displaced. But due to a coalition blockade on supplies to the country, humanitarian aid can't reach them. As a result, more than 7.5 million are facing starvation. Medical staff are already overwhelmed from treating war victims every day, despite the risk of becoming targets themselves. As medicines run out, so too does patience and optimism that a new break in fighting will last and the suffering will finally end. Jerome Evans, The Newsmakers.
Well, joining me now on The Newsmakers to discuss if a solution to Yemen's war can be found in Dubai is Dr. Fahad Al-Shalaimi, Director of the Gulf Peace and Security Forum.
Very clearly.
And in the Yemeni capital is Haikal Bafana, the Managing Director of Bafana Advisory. Thanks for joining us, gentlemen. Heikel Bafana, let's start with you.
Thanks.
Do you think the ceasefire will hold?
Well, Imran, so far in the first 6 hours or so, we've had airstrikes in the provinces of Sana'a, Amran, Aden, Hajjah, as well as Damar. Pro-Saudi, yani anti-Houthi militias in Al Jawf province and Taiz province have in fact unilaterally declared that they are not part of the ceasefire. So we're really not sure what's going on right now.
Okay, I'm happy to inform you that I can bring in Hamza Sharkabi now. He's a Yemeni doctor, political activist. Hamza Sharkabi, who do you blame for the mess?
First, before I think send any blaming messages, again, I would have to agree that the people who suffer from this are 25 million Yemenis across the country. There was a political process taking the country into a new era post Ali Saleh, after 33 years of nonsense and suffering. And that process was spoiled by Ali Saleh and his allegiance with the Houthis. There were so many ways to get out of it, but that scenario was not prepared for by the United Nations and the G10, who are trying to broker the uprising in 2011. And this is something we have been warning about since 2011, that leaving Ali Saleh on the loose is gonna end up creating another war. But no one was listening. Everyone was quite sure, especially from the international community, that no, we know better. So there was no B plan for the political transition, and this is where we end up.
Okay, Fahd al-Shalaimi, the Gulf countries have been sending their soldiers, sending your soldiers, Kuwaitis, Emiratis, Bahrainis, Saudis, into Yemen, into the theater of war to fight and to die. Do they even know what they are fighting and dying for?
Definitely. And I think even United Nations knows about this reason, and that's why there is a dialogue about that.
What are they fighting and dying for?
I really encourage your speaker they are fighting to restore legitimacy for President Abdurrabbu Mansour Hadi. This is one. They are fighting for our regional security from occupied by Al-Houthi, who's supported by the Iranian. If you're, I just want to really salute your speaker in Sana'a for his courage, because it's hard, in fact, to say your opinion, hopefully. And the reason we are in Yemen, we got an official request from a legitimate government and the president. And that's why we have a vice president now, and there is a political dialogue, and this president is meeting with others. And he was in United Nations last General Assembly. So what we have is a legitimacy. The argument, if he's not, I think this is not a good argument, because we need to keep the country safe. We need to start the dialogue. Then we need to restore the country back again. Then we will have the constitution and any changes and elections. And I think President Hadi is not interested, in fact, to continue. But at the meantime, we need something solid on chain of command, and the world need a legitimacy, a legitimate government that could deal with, to bring foreign aids, to bring constructions, anything in the next post-war in Yemen. And I think that is the important thing. It's useless that as we discuss on something happened in the past.
Right.
I think we should build on the present and move forward to the future.
I want to bring in Hamza Sharkabi.
To save blood and lives.
Hamza Sharkabi, there are those who say that the roots of the conflict lie far deeper than any reasons you three gentlemen would give or anyone else on the surface. There are those who say that the roots of this conflict lie in a sectarian war between Zaydi Shia and Sunni, that the roots of the conflict lie in a proxy Cold War between the Saudis and the Iranians. How do you respond to those claims?
The Saudis are not, and the Gulf Council is not any longer involved in a proxy war in Yemen. They're fighting themselves alongside with Yemenis. So this proxy war analogy maybe just applies to Iran because they are the ones supporting the Houthis via Hezbollah. The United Nations is now looking through about 8 months of peace deals. The problem does not necessarily lie too far and too deep within the Yemeni mentality or within these sectarian fault lines. The war has used these fault lines to its advantage. Terrorist groups like Al-Houthis, like Al-Qaeda has cultivated on these cultural and political grievances. I was in Sada for about a year during the Sixth War in 2009, 2010, and I worked in the front line with the military in the war before it. And from everything I have seen in those two wars, the grievances that were building inside everyone has nothing to do with religion. It's a factor, of course. This is how warlords phrase it. If a warlord would like to recruit you, they're going to use every piece of element to bring you in. Ali Saleh used money to bring people, politics. This is the only game he's been playing, and the Houthis have been sucked into it, and the rest of the country, unfortunately.
Okay, I want to get final thoughts from Haikal Bafana. Haikal, before we go, you're the man in Sana'a. Tell me what you would like to happen in an ideal scenario in the coming weeks and months.
After 9 months of this violence, honestly, I think all parties need to really reflect on what they have been up to across the board. But I think one of the first things that has to happen is that Saudi Arabia has to withdraw its soldiers, and this includes the GCC states, the soldiers, as well as the foreigners that they've brought in. I mean, we've been seeing ridiculous reports of like Colombians, Salvadorans, Central African Republic private soldiers, mercenaries being brought in. I mean, I'm not sure whether this is the Arab coalition anymore, but whatever it is changing the dynamics on the ground, because these are clearly foreigners coming in with weapons to fight in Yemen. And that makes the solution to any, for any peace in Yemen, even more distant.
Foreigners?
Okay, let me ask Fahd Shalemi. Fahd Shalemi,
is that at the end of the day, is to make it a Yemeni solution again.
Okay, Yemeni solution. Final thoughts from Fahd Shalemi. I see you smiling there. Haikal said there's a medley of nationalities as a part of this coalition. You smiled, why?
I think the words that the Gulf brought Colombians and brought, I think it needs to be revised. This is a propaganda by Ali Saleh and the Houthi, by the way. But in all means, the people who die in Yemen is our sons.
You're going to tell that to the New York Times then? What are you talking about? There are Colombians dying over here. We've had dead Bangladeshis even. At the end of the day, it's clearly sure that it's being sent by the UAE. To deny it as Ali Abdullah Saleh propaganda or Houthi propaganda.
I have the mic.
It's completely disingenuous.
I have the mic.
Disingenuous.
It's not your right.
Honestly.
I have the mic.
No, you don't have the right to lie. You don't have the right to lie.
Okay, let's let Fahd finish his point.
I think this is part of the propaganda that they are mentioning. If you see the victims of the war, from our soldiers. We released their names, and we are proud that they are fighting for a noble case. And we do not need the foreign fighters. We have enough forces to even destroy Sana'a if we want, but we do not want that. The first principle of war to capture a city is to destroy electricity and communications and the bridges. The coalitions did not do that for Sana'a. So
where's
that's why
this principle from, Fahd?
This war is taking too long. If that is a principle of war.
These are not in the Geneva Conventions, Fahd. Where are you getting this principle from?
No. That is the tactics of war. You have to close the communication and the bridges, not hospitals, not schools, but the bridges and the key knots of road. That is a tactics is being used on all military. Go to the American war, go to any war. And I am a former military, and I know what I'm talking about.
Okay.
And
okay,
I know that.
Okay,
but
fair
we
enough.
did not do that.
Okay, I want to get...
The coalition did not do that.
Okay, I don't know what you expect. I don't know if you expect some sort of commendation for that not happening, but I want to get a final thought from Hamza Shargabi. The Houthis have been accused of committing war crimes by Human Rights Watch. Amnesty International has accused the Saudi-led coalition of committing war crimes. Everybody has blood on their hands. Are you embarrassed and ashamed as a Yemeni to see this go on in your country?
This is the price we have to pay for letting someone like Ali Saleh rule the country for so long, unfortunately. And one way, if he was not defeated, if this war has not ended with him being defeated one way or the other, either him being sent to the ICC or ending up conveniently not alive anymore, this war would have no meaning. And it's a very bizarre position to be in, that your country is a theater for a regional war. I now have more empathy towards the Lebanese and towards the Syrians. I would understand more in terms of geopolitics. I would understand the Saudi position, but even the Iranian position, but never the Houthis, never the Saleh's position. How come they can actually attack civilians all across the country, claiming that they are Al-Qaeda or they're ISIS or whatever, and they've been attacking civilian institutions.
Hamza Shargabi, Haikal Bafana and Fahd al-Shalemi, thank you very much, gentlemen. Thank you, all of you, for joining us during this debate. Still to come on the Newsmakers, we have a special report into Venezuela's soaring murder rate. And in picture this, Typhoon Melor makes landfall in the Philippines. It's been a week since the balance of power shifted in Venezuelan politics. The opposition won a supermajority, enabling it to challenge the authority of socialist President Nicolas Maduro. But with the country crippled by sky-high inflation and a rocketing crime rate, the new lawmakers have an enormous task on their hands. In this special report, Sandra Gutman got exclusive access to one of Caracas's crime lords who claim they own the police and run crime in the city.
This is Caracas, capital of Venezuela, one of the most dangerous cities in the world. Violence and crime are a daily reality for people who live here. Almost everyone knows someone who's been kidnapped for ransom. Especially in the barrio, the slums that surround the city center, home to nearly half of Caracas's population. It's a no-go area for ordinary Venezuelans. Even police stay away. Roughly every 27 minutes, someone is killed in Caracas. On weekends, morgues and hospitals fill up. It makes this city more dangerous than Baghdad. But most murders happen here inside the barrio. The barrio's residents are wary of outsiders, and especially of camera crews. But one crime boss has agreed to let me into his hideout to talk about his life.
Todos tenemos que sobrevivir y la manera más fácil para nosotros es secuestrar, robar, vender droga, todo lo que tú te puedas imaginar, que nos produzca más dinero que trabajar un trabajo común que no nos da nada. Este barrio está algo calmado, ya tenemos todo, como se dice, tomado, los policías no nos fastidian, le pagamos para que nos cuiden más bien, para que nos digan qué es lo que pasa, qué es lo que viene, si hay alguien que se va a meter, nos cuidamos, nos escondemos. Tú aquí ganas en un mes que 20.000, 30.000 y en la droga o secuestrando lo que sea, ganas 2 millones que son.
What's it like organizing a kidnapping?
Primero se estudia la persona, primero tú ves si la persona tiene dinero, si tiene familiares, los familiares que tengan, que no sean policías. Lo interceptamos en una vía con una moto, con otro carro y lo despojamos del carro. El carro se va, se vende y la persona la privamos de la libertad y luego le vendemos su libertad. Le decimos cuánto vale tu vida, cuánto tienes tú en el banco y le sacamos todo y la familia tiene que sacar todo que en una semana o menos. Si no, se muere.
¿Le gusta su trabajo?
Claro que sí, desde niños hacemos esto. Estamos acostumbrados y no tenemos otra forma de buscar dinero. No estudiamos nada, ¿sabes?
Some people blame Caracas's epidemic of violence on the corrupt and poorly paid police force. In fact, the government admits that 1 in 5 crimes are perpetrated by police. With trust in the police at rock bottom, ordinary Venezuelans take matters into their own hands. Caracas is at the epicenter of Latin America's epidemic of violence. The United Nations says Latin America racked up nearly 135,000 murders in 2012. That's nearly a third of all the murders in the world that year. That's despite the fact that the region is home to less than a tenth of the world's population. 4 Latin American nations accounted for more than 100,000 killings. And of those countries, Venezuela is the only one where the murder rate has consistently risen since 1994. Faced with fear and insecurity, many Venezuelans feel compelled to leave. 1.5 million of them have fled the country in recent years. Those who remain say the situation is getting worse, with an economic crisis creating even more poverty, inequality, and desperation. The morgue in Caracas is always busy, with families of shooting victims waiting to collect the bodies of their loved ones. The government of President Nicolás Maduro launched a crackdown in the barrios this summer with specialist squads. But almost everyone in Caracas agrees that cleaning up crime from the city of 2 million people requires more than a quick fix. Sandra Gatman, The Newsmakers.
Well, in today's picture this. Typhoon Melor has hit the Philippines, forcing hundreds of thousands of people to seek refuge. It's left millions without electricity in what is one of the most typhoon-prone regions on the planet. Take a look. Today's newsmaker has been the war in Yemen. As a 7-day ceasefire comes into effect in the country, the two sides are talking in Switzerland to try and find a lasting diplomatic solution. If the violence can be stopped, it would bring about a much-needed peace for a people that have now seen months of war, destroying the country's infrastructure and worsening an already dire humanitarian crisis. But the situation in Switzerland remains precarious, and everyone is hoping to avoid a repeat of last June's talks, which failed before the groups even met. You've been watching this edition of the Newsmakers with me, Imran Garta. As always, thank you for watching. Bye-bye.